Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. So today I just want to go over a quick review of the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Concealer. So this is the box that it comes in. It is 12 milliliters or 0.4 fluid ounces. It is made in France and it is described as a multi-purpose glow concealer. I have shade 3 and here are the ingredients, if you can see that. Okay, so I purchased shade 3. This is what it comes in package-wise. So this is a glass bottle with a doe foot applicator. And here is shade 3. And this is for fair skin with neutral undertones. I wasn't really sure exactly which shade to get. I was kind of leaning between a couple, but this one has worked well for me. I have it on under my eyes right now. So here you go. You can see, it definitely has kind of hidden some of my dark circles, which were pretty bad today. And it does give a glowy finish. So if you stay tuned, I do have a clip of a wear test that I did. I did this yesterday where I wore it under the eyes and I also used it instead of foundation. So I kind of put it on the redness of my cheeks and kind of just spread it out to see how it would work for that. This is definitely a luminous concealer. It is going to be a light to medium coverage. I'd say closer to the light side because really you want to kind of use this, put it in light layers. One thing to note, I haven't noticed with layering it that it really makes that much of a difference in coverage. So this one, I feel like 1 to 2 layers, you've pretty much maxed out the coverage. So it is going to say light to medium and it is very luminous. So it is going to be one of those more illuminating correctors or illuminating under eye concealers versus something that is a little bit more heavy duty. So, I guess purpose-wise, it's more similar to something like the Sisley Stilo Lumiere than perhaps something more like the Sisley Phytostearns Éclat, whereas this is meant to kind of mask any under eye darkness and circles and so forth and kind of blend in with your skin tone. These are meant to give a little bit more radiance and kind of highlight that area as well. So I have been wearing this for the last couple weeks, almost every day. And I like this concealer. I think it's a nice concealer. However, if you are looking for more coverage, you're gonna need something else. But for light to medium, closer on the light side coverage, I think this is a great option. And it wears really well. I haven't had any issues really with any creasing or anything like that. After a very long day, there can be some creasing, but I think, for the most part, I've noticed that it depends more on the powder situation. So if I don't powder under the eyes, then I don't really notice any creasing or caking even after a really long day. But if I do, it kind of seems to depend on what kind of powder I use and how much under the eye. So you've got to use the powder sparingly just to set under the eye if you want to go for a very long time. But otherwise, you've got a decent regular length day, like 8 hours or so, and you're fine. And honestly, the amount of creasing or caking is very minimal anyway. So even if you were to go like a 12-hour day, you're not really going to notice anything unless you really look up close. So I haven't had any issues. I don't really consider that a problem personally. I have been wearing this. Some days I have my makeup on for 12 hours. And yeah, I'm in quarantine, so I'm not really going anywhere, but I'm still running around and playing with the kids and stuff. So I'm still getting a little bit of activity and so forth, and been cooking a ton. So, steam and grease and all of that hasn't really been an issue for my makeup with this concealer. So that's just something to note. It has held up well in those types of conditions. And Personally, as you'll see in the clip I'm about to show you guys, I think, you know, for wearing this on the face, I personally would prefer not to. Like, I think for like covering up like individual blemishes and so forth, it does an okay job. Not great. It's not something I would reach for that. Especially since it is luminous, it's kind of highlighting that instead of masking it. So I would probably not use this for spot coverage too much. I think it's best for under eye use. When I did spread it out on my cheeks and so forth, it did help camouflage some of the redness, but it really gives a really luminous look. And I think in that case, I'd rather just go for the foundation instead of the concealer, because even though, I don't know, it's just a personal preference. So you'll see in the video what it looks like, and it turned out fine. It's just, I think personally, this is gonna be something that I use specifically for under the eyes. And I really like it for that. The luminosity and glow you get from that is very nice. And it works well with, I've used it with different tinted moisturizers and like light foundations. I've used it with heavier duty foundations. Not that I ever really go heavy duty. I think the one with the most coverage that I wear consistently is the CERA Dewdrop, which is what I have on today. But it has paired well beautifully with everything I've tried it with. I've tried it with a couple different primers and no issues. And yeah, so overall, I think it is a great option if you're looking for a glowy type concealer. Color-wise, for the Luminous Silk Foundation, again, this is shade 3 in the concealer. The Luminous Silk, I've tried shade 2, which is my closest match, but I'd actually prefer to go like a tad lighter. And I know they've recently released some new colors. I think like there's a 1.5 now. And I talked to a rep and they said that that's actually darker than the 2. So I don't know, I need to kind of go and swatch things again because I haven't used it in years. But just so you know, number wise, I'm not a 3 in the foundation. So you kind of have to, you know, take a look at the descriptions and so forth and, you know, maybe test it in store when stores reopen. So if they even have testers again, I'm not even sure if they will. So, okay. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded and a little bit off topic, but that's everything. So stay tuned and I will show you guys the clip of the full day wear test. And I do have a couple check-ins for that. So thank you so much. Okay, so I am just testing the Giorgio Armani concealer. I'm using shade 3. And I actually did skincare a long time ago. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm not sure how long this test will be, but all I have on is I did skincare and I did the BLO Shake Recherche Serum de Tint in shade 1 this morning. And that was, I don't know, 6 hours ago or so. So I'm going to apply some of the concealer under my eyes and kind of just on spots of redness, and we'll see how that goes. So you can kind of see, you know, coverage, and we'll see how it wears on other sections. So just so you can compare, this here is with fingers. This is the Kevyn Aucoin contour brush, and I know I need to get a better concealer brush, but this one works okay. I usually use it more for the under eye setting powder. So you can see that with this particular brush, at least, like I don't personally care for the application there. I feel like it kind of gets into the lines a little bit. And then let's take, I'm gonna actually, just getting a damp beauty blender here, and I'm gonna kind of tap that out a little bit. All right, so this side is a little heavier than this side due to the dampened beauty blender. Coverage wise, they're both, I'd say like on the lighter coverage, I can definitely still see circles underneath. And yeah, so I think I'm going to go ahead and just apply some to the cheeks and see what it does for my redness. And I think with this, I'm going to use a brush. This is the Refer 17. This is like the foundation, the flat top kabuki type style brush. Just gonna kind of spread this out. So you can definitely see, do you see that luminosity, the radiance in this? Okay, and you can see the coverage here versus this cheek. Let's add a little bit more on this side. Just kind of using the residual stuff to kind of go over, but I do want to see how it does on this little sunspot, and typically tap things like this in. Kind of blurring the edges around it. So that's kind of the effect it gives for coverage there. I can get it a little bit more covered. Let's go ahead and let that sit for a minute. And just gonna kind of blend in everything that's left on the brush around my nose. So you can see it does help with coverage. You could use this on its own. It really gives a really dewy radiance to the skin. And let's see how the brush does with this. Do that sat for a second there. Just kind of brushing around the edges. But you can also see that this is not going to be a full coverage concealer, but it does kind of help with some of that. And I'm not brushing over the spot because I don't want to disturb the actual concealer that's kind of right there, but I do want to kind of blend out these edges. So I think, you know, especially since I'm not wearing any actual foundation or anything, it's just kind of important to make sure I don't have any obvious edges there. But yeah, so we'll see how this wears. It does feel a little tacky to the skin. You know, I think, go ahead, I'm gonna set one side with powder and one side we'll leave alone. I'm gonna use the Givenchy Poudre Premiere powder. And I'm gonna use the Beautylish and Chikuhodo brush. So I will set this right side here with powder. Just want to make sure I have enough under the eye, so I'm just getting a little bit on my finger here. Can't really get it. I'm trying to scrape around the edges, so there we go. All right, I'm not gonna wear any other makeup, so we'll just see how this goes. I do have a blemish coming here on my chin. So we'll add a little dab here. See how that it does with the redness instead of the brownness of the sunspot, which you can see is lightened. You can compare it to this one, but still very obvious. And this one is a little bit more obvious than this one in general. So all right, so I think it did a better job on this spot here. All right, so that is it. You can see how it looks, and I will be back later for an update. Thanks. Okay, so it's been 5 hours since I applied the concealer, and if you recall, I have it under my eyes and basically kind of spread out on my cheeks to kind of disguise a little bit of the redness, and on this sunspot here. So this side of my face was dusted with powder and this side was not. And there is not a huge difference between the two. So I got up really close with the magnifying lighted mirror, and you know, the actual like appearance looks pretty similar on both sides. But I feel like when I look at it from a distance, I prefer the side without the powder. And I think it's just like, you know, this is a really dewy, luminous concealer. And I think if you are going to wear it in large patches on your face, you kind of need to give into that and go with that luminosity. And I feel like the powder kind of mattifies it a little bit. And it just, I don't know, to me, it just doesn't look quite as smooth, as flawless for some reason. But when I look at the pores up close, they pretty much look the same. So you can kind of see, you know, I don't have any like real issues or anything. It's not really settling in here. It's pretty light coverage, so you're not getting like a lot of coverage of the dark circles or anything. And I think I do have a little powder that has settled in this crease under the eye here. But on the rest of my face, like even here, like around my mouth and so forth, it actually looks the same on both sides. And here is the sunspot that I covered. You can kind of see still like a little bit of a halo around that. I didn't want to wipe away anything on the top, so it's kind of, you know, I didn't pat it out quite enough, I think. But, you know, again, that really, it gives like a veil of coverage to it, but not really significant. If I wanted to really cover that up, I think I'd have to go in with something a little bit more heavy duty. Okay, so I'm back. It's now been just over 8 hours since I applied the concealer. And let me just show you what we have here. So under the eye here, where I used the brush and then the dampened beauty blender, you can see I don't really have any creasing or anything. It does have slightly less coverage maybe than the other eye, because I think the beauty blender probably took off a little excess, but you know, no creasing or anything. That looks good. So I think this side of the face actually looks better than this side here. This is the side that I powdered. You can see here under the eye, I do have some accumulation in the little lines. So I have had some caking there. And I did powder this cheek. So I spread the foundation here and I see like some patchiness. It's kind of like some like accumulation of the powder in spots. So it's definitely much more noticeable now than earlier in the day. Around the mouth, I don't really notice any additional lines or anything. I did put concealer on this blemish that's coming in somewhere around here. And, you know, it's pretty much the same, so no issues there. This sunspot that I tried to cover, again, it looks pretty much the same as when I covered it. So just like a light veil of color. You can kind of compare it to this one, which I didn't really do anything with. This one is slightly darker naturally though. So overall, I think that if you're going to wear this on your face, you know, it does give a really nice luminous look to it. But I think the side without the powder looks, it just, I feel like it held up a little bit better. Although just know that the side without the powder, there's a slight tackiness to where the concealer is applied that kind of lasted all day. So it didn't like completely like dry down to like, I mean, seriously, it's a liquid that didn't set with powder. So there is some tackiness, whereas this side, you know, it's not really there. I can feel a little bit of tackiness where there's probably some like breakthrough, but you know, I didn't apply the concealer all over. So, you know, pretty much all over the cheek, but yeah, so I feel like some tackiness like right here where I get a little bit oilier. So that is basically it for this wear test. So thank you. Okay, so those were basically the results of the full day wear test that I filmed. I did do some additional wear tests where I used the concealer primarily just under the eyes under different conditions. And again, overall, I like this concealer. I think it gives a nice luminosity and a nice highlight to the under eye area. And I think if you use 1 to 2 light layers, you get a pretty good light to medium coverage. So I do recommend this concealer if you are looking for something that fits in that category. Skin types, you know, I feel like it's a pretty hydrating one, so I feel like this would work well for dry skin. I have more normal skin and it works well for me. And oily skin is the only one I'm not sure how well it would work on because it does feel pretty hydrating. So I'm not sure if it would kind of slip off and separate or not. So if anybody with oily skin has any experience with this, please feel free to leave a comment down below and that would be great. So that is everything for this concealer. So any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. So stay safe and healthy. And again, thank you for watching. Have a great day.